Hi, I'm Sandy Botkin, CPA attorney and former trainer of IRS attorneys nationwide. And we're going to discuss why it's so important to lower your taxes. Because I don't think people realize how much they're paying and how significant it can be to lower your taxes by even a couple of $1,000s. First of all, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, I got a refund. I don't pay taxes. And it's amazing how many people have said that to me. Let me give you an idea of what the average person pays in taxes so you have a feel for what you're paying. Because I don't think you really know what you're paying. Someone who is a single individual with one deduction makes roughly $50,000 a year. Believe it or not, between federal, state, and Social Security and Medicare, pays about $12,300 in taxes. And if they get a refund, that doesn't affect that. Usually the refunds or the withholding is much more than the taxes. Why? So why is that? So you'll feel good. So when you get money back, you don't realize how much they're really taking out of your paycheck. Someone who makes $100,000 a year between federal, state, and Social Security is paying roughly $32,000 in taxes. And someone who makes $250,000 a year is paying a whopping $94,600 in taxes. So if you think you're not paying money in taxes, you really are. Now, another question that I ask people when I do a lot of seminars is, where does your money go? Do you know? Do you know how much you're really spending on food, entertainment, taxes, and various categories? I bet you don't. Well, let me give you an idea of where your money goes, because there was a study. Generally, the American Bankers Association estimates that roughly 20 to 40% for most people go out in debt service. Now, debt service includes things like mortgage debt, education loans, car loans, social loans, personal loans, all loans, somewhere between 20 and 40%. That means in every paycheck, that amount is committed money. You can't spend. Now, in addition, there is a day called Taxpayer Freedom Day, which is a day that the average person looking at this has to work to pay off their taxes. You know what day that is? I had one person, one of my seminars, say it was December 28th. It's actually April 17th. Now, that can vary depending on the state you're in and depending on your income. It could be more than that or less, but that's the average. Well, if you go from January to April 17th, that means that roughly 30% of what you make goes out in taxes. You know, many of you may have heard Susie Orman, who's very famous, and she's very famous for saying, oh, debt's the number one expense, and you should lower your debt. And as famous as she is, she's wrong. The number one expense in this country is taxes. It exceeds what you pay for food, clothing, lodging, and transportation combined. Shocking, isn't it? So if 30% goes out in taxes on the average, and as I said, it could be as high as 45%, and 20% goes out in debt, and that's on the conservative side, well, that leaves you 50% for everything else. Everything else includes things like retirement for you, education for your family and for your kids, medical, dental, repairs, insurance, food. If you wonder why you can't get ahead, because you have to live on roughly 50% of what you're making. But let me give you another example of how important tax planning is. You know, there was a study done by an individual, and he asked himself a very interesting question. If I start off with $1 of equity, and my money doubles every year so I don't have to pay taxes, how long would it take for that $1 to be worth $1 million? So, for example, if you start off with $1, at the end of 1 year, it's worth $2. $2 at the end of 2 years is worth $4. Well, if you run the numbers, it actually takes 20 years, but at the end of 20 years, it's worth actually $1,048,000, believe it or not. Now watch this. Same dollar doubling, same 20 years, but we're going to assume you pay 35% in taxes on each year's gain. And when you consider federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare, excise tax, sales tax, hotel tax, and many of the other taxes, state taxes, at 35% is not that high. So we're going to assume 35%. So a dollar doubled is not $2, it's really $1.65. Same 20 years, take a guess how much it's worth. I bet you won't guess. The answer, $22,370. Why? Why is there such a difference? The answer is compounding. You lose the interest on the money. Albert Einstein is attributed with saying that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. It can work for you by getting your taxes down to the legal minimum. It can work against you by overpaying your taxes. And that's one very important point, is that once you learn some tax planning, you get even one idea in taxes. It's good this year, it's good next year, it's good the year after that. Tax planning is the best residual form of income in the world because it's basically guaranteed. And that will make your life a lot less taxing.